Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez announced the signing of a contract with the Russian Direct Investment Fund to vaccinate over 10 million people against COVID-19. Mobilizations have been seen across Latin America this Thursday to mark Human Rights Day. South Africa has confirmed a second wave of the coronavirus epidemic as the number of cases continues to increase. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. This Thursday, Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez announced the signing of a contract with the Russian Direct Investment Fund to vaccinate over 10 million people against COVID-19. The Russian Federation will send a first shipment of the Sputnik V vaccine to Argentina before the end of the year in order to immediately immunize 300,000 citizens. Another batch will arrive during the month of January to vaccinate another 5 million, and in February the rest of the doses are set to arrive in the country. President Fernandez noted that in total there will be enough doses to vaccinate 10 million Argentines between January and February. His government also signed a clause for the supply preference if more doses are required to vaccinate another 5 million people in March.
We have come to inform you that yesterday we signed a contract with the Sovereign Fund of the Russian Federation that guarantees the delivery of Russian vaccines to Argentina. This is the third contract that Argentina has signed. The first was with AstraZeneca at Oxford University. The second was with COVAX, which is an agency, an organization created by the United Nations. And the third is precisely this, which we signed with the Sovereign Fund of the Russian Federation.
And staying in Argentina, the voluntary termination of pregnancy bill is being debated this Thursday in Congress and only lacks the support of 6 Congress members in order to be passed. Deputies are set to vote on the bill in a session that experts foresee will extend until Friday. If approved, the legislation will pass to the Senate, which will meet to decide whether to grant the final approval of the bill. The session will be attended by 123 lawmakers who have already taken a stance in favour, 109 who have declared themselves against the bill, and 24 who are yet to vote. The bill requires 129 votes in favour in order to pass. Venezuela's National Electoral Council provided an update on the final results of the parliamentary elections held on Sunday. The electoral body announced the results in a tweet, noting that as of this Thursday, December 10th, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela has obtained 253 seats in the National Assembly. The PSUV is followed by the Democratic Action Party, which secured 11 parliamentary seats, while the Progressive Advance Party has 3 seats, and the Hope for Change Party also secured 3 seats. 3 other parties took the final 4 seats in the National Assembly. The voting process for the 3 Indigenous members of Venezuela's National Assembly was held on Wednesday. The electoral process began in August and was held in 10 states in the country. According to the special regulations defined by the National Electoral Council, Indigenous peoples held community assemblies in September to select the candidates who stood in the parliamentary election. The 3 elected Indigenous lawmakers will complete the 277 seats in the new National Assembly to be inaugurated on January 5th, 2021. Relatives and fellow comrades of Chileans who were detained, disappeared and killed during the Pinochet dictatorship have rejected a judicial ruling that led to the release of 61 former agents of the National Intelligence Directorate's secret police implicated in these abuses. The relatives of the victims rallied to reject the ruling by the 8th Chamber of the Court of Appeals, shouting "No more judges in complicity with impunity" in front of the courthouse. Demonstrators stressed that the ruling is a serious setback in the defence and promotion of human rights in the country. In 1975, all the officials involved in the massacre of 119 leftist militants, known as Operation Colombo, were acquitted. In this context, the demonstrators demanded justice. This year has been one of the most damaging to indigenous populations in Brazil in what can be described as over 5 centuries of genocide. 2020 has seen a COVID-19 pandemic, illegal invasions of indigenous lands, wildfires and violence. We have more details in the following report.
Illegal miners and loggers do not work from home due to the pandemic. In 1 year, an area of over 11,000 square kilometers of the Amazon was deforested. Between January and November, 60% of indigenous lands were devastated by more than 100,000 fires. The invaders are accused of spreading COVID-19 among the indigenous population.
This was a scary year because the indigenous people suffered attacks by land monopolizers, loggers, illegal miners, the government itself, and this was accompanied by a pandemic that claimed many indigenous lives.
The Yanomami and Yekwana communities estimate that a third of their population may already have been infected by COVID-19. Indigenous people enter the risk group at 20 years younger ages than non-indigenous and are under threat of severe symptoms when measles, malnutrition, and COVID-19 are combined.
Wherever there is illegal mining, there is COVID-19. We have no doubt that Garimbo was the main vehicle of coronavirus transmission for the Yanomami and Yekwawa people within the Yanomami indigenous land. It was not through the health officials in the Yanomami district, although they were infected from COVID-19. They stayed in their homes in the city practicing social isolation.
The pandemic attacked the sources of ancestral knowledge and indigenous languages, with the death of historic leaders, such as Ariadna Yawalapiti and Paulinho Paikan, companions of the cacique Raoni, who also lost his wife, Pehuica. The indigenous leader, who is the world's spokesperson for the Amazon, was hospitalized from COVID-19 at the age of 90. In 2020, he overcame a digestive hemorrhage, the coronavirus, and experienced an attack on his village.
He is a great example not only for me, his legitimate grandson, but for young relatives of different ethnicities in Brazil. I'm not the only one who will continue this fight. We will need many young relatives to be together, united, and empowered to fight.
2021 will not be easy neither. The Brazilian government is promoting projects for granting the title of public lands, environmental reserve, and indigenous territories illegally occupied for commercial exploitation. In parallel, negotiations are in progress for a free trade agreement with the European Union that will deepen Brazil's role as a commodity exporter in exchange for value-added products.
We denounce the increase in deforestation and human rights violations as the main threats, and we ask not to approve the agreement as it is currently written because it doesn't guarantee environmental and land protection or the protection of the indigenous people's rights.
The global environmental crisis converges with the arrival of neo-colonial extractivism in parts of the Amazon that have never been exploited before. Places where isolated or recently contacted indigenous communities live. The death of the defender of the indigenous rights, Rieli Franciscato, as a result of an arrow shot by the isolated indigenous people he was trying to defend from the invasions, is a symptom of the destruction of environmental control and indigenous protection entities in a context of invasions and the almost complete elimination of fines based on environmental crimes.
We are in an extremely sad, difficult and complicated situation for the environmental situation in the Amazon because we're dealing with lawmakers who have no environmental commitment and they are not embarrassed by legalizing crimes because the invasion of preservation units is a crime. To destroy a reserve in order to keep the person who invaded it and destroyed it inside is to give a message to the population: invade and destroy. The government guarantees legalization.
Over the last year, there have been repeated reports of evangelizers groups entering indigenous lands in complicity with Bolsonaro's administration. Furthermore, the president vetoed 16 measures that forced the Brazilian state to protect the indigenous people during the pandemic. Afterwards, the Supreme Court overruled the veto.
Those patterns that converge in a genocidal structure are in the Brazilian DNA. Since 2018 to date, we have continuous evidence that these patterns were intensified so that we can talk about an ongoing genocide.
Indigenous peoples, which are on the front line in the fight to keep Brazilian flora and fauna alive, end the year with almost 900 deaths from COVID-19 and over 41,000 contagion cases.
Ignacio Lemos y Julian Asif para teleSUR.
In Chile, social movements and relatives of citizens detained during the widespread social unrest of 2019 took to the streets this Thursday to demand that President Sebastián Piñera's administration grant them a pardon. The day of mobilization comes as part of international activities to mark Human Rights Day. Relatives of those detained during the anti-government protests stress that they have been held in custody for over a year without any proof presented that they are guilty of a crime. They denounced the government for adopting this measure as a means to postpone the judicial process and delay their release. Official reports detail that over 28,000 people were detained during the peaceful demonstrations of 2019. And in Paraguay, various social movements and political organizations also mobilized to mark Human Rights Day, taking to the streets of the capital, Asunción. Protesters are demanding government policies that guarantee the basic rights of the population, such as decent housing, health and food. And also this Thursday, Colombian social movements demonstrated in defense of life and in rejection of the ongoing and escalating violence in indigenous and rural territories. The mobilizations called by the District Association of Education Workers took place in several cities. In the capital, Bogotá, protesters rallied in Bolivar Square. Meanwhile, in Guatemala, members of rural, indigenous and social movements gathered in front of the public prosecutor's office to demand the resignation of the Attorney General, given his lack of action to tackle violence and the corruption within government. The march, which was delayed after several protesters were arrested on the Inter-American Highway, headed to the central square of Guatemala City to also demand the resignation of President Alejandro Giammattei, who is accused of failing to comply with his obligations. Experts of the US Food and Drug Administration are set to meet this Thursday to scrutinise Pfizer's data on its COVID-19 vaccine, on alert for any red flags or oversight. The meeting's the final hurdle before an expected decision to greenlight the shot for use in millions of US citizens. The public review comes as UK regulators investigate 2 cases of allergic reaction to the vaccine. Safety will be top of the agenda for the panel of medical experts who will vote on whether to endorse the vaccine. They will also address unknowns about the vaccine's effectiveness in certain groups. A final FDA positive decision and the first shots could follow within days. While much of Switzerland is preparing for tighter lockdown restrictions because of COVID-19, the country's French-speaking regions are going in the other direction, allowing restaurants to reopen after a drop in cases. Officials and restaurant owners alike are expressing confusion and uncertainty about the mixed signals and the epidemic's future. Authorities in 5 cantons around the cities of Geneva and Lausanne are allowing restaurants to reopen under strict conditions. On the other hand, federal officials announced new nationwide restrictions could be ordered on Friday and start this weekend, leaving business owners in limbo and unsure about which rules to follow in the coming days. To date, Switzerland has registered more than 368,000 COVID-19 cases and over 5,800 deaths.
It feels good to work, that's for sure, but we do not know where we are heading. New restrictions are supposed to be announced on Saturday, but we don't have any idea. We are in a complete uncertainty. The lifting of the lockdown is of course a relief, but it's also a concern because we know that the third wave is ahead of us. We are well aware that the level of contamination is not very low, so the new wave could come soon.
South African authorities have confirmed a second wave of the novel coronavirus epidemic as the number of cases continues to increase. The country recorded over 6,700 new cases in the last 24 hours, setting a record for the number of daily confirmed infections. To date, South Africa registers more than 828,000 cases and more than 22,000 deaths. The African nation is the most affected by the pandemic in the continent. Health Minister Sweli Mkhize said he expects a faster increase in COVID-19 cases with a higher peak than in the first wave.
In a tough year, people want to party, but I think the government should put tighter restrictions on gatherings, because I see now the gatherings were actually increased instead of decreased. So I think, that was a bit of a mistake, a bit of a blunder on their side.
This thing was not moving as fast as it is right now. And I just think maybe Eastern Cape, the hotspots, those 4 provinces, those that are called the hotspots, should be locked down, implemented level 5 lockdown. That is the best situation, going back to level 5. because now people think everything is back to normal and they do not have their masks on.
Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan attended a military parade in Baku to mark Azerbaijan's military victory against Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. The military parade was held in Baku's Liberty Square. President Aliyev described Erdogan as a brother in his speech and thanked the Turkish president for stating from the beginning that Turkey would always be on Azerbaijan's side. Meanwhile, the Turkish president said although Azerbaijan had saved its lands from occupation, this does not mean that the struggle is over. He noted that the struggle carried out in the political and military areas will continue on many other fronts. The hostilities in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region began on September 27th and ended 6 weeks later with a Moscow-brokered deal under which Armenia ceded parts of the disputed territory. Another large US convoy loaded with oil stolen from northeast Syria's al-Hasaka province headed for Iraq. According to local sources, the convoy consists of 60 vehicles, including tankers and refrigerated trucks. The US convoy left from the oil fields north of al-Hasaka to enter Iraqi territory through the illegal border crossing of Al-Walid. This latest theft of Syrian oil occurs 3 days after the US sent a convoy of 43 vehicles with military and logistical supplies, including tankers, from Iraq through the Al-Walid crossing to Al-Hasaka, an area rich in oil resources. Early this Thursday, a TV anchor was shot and killed by gunmen in eastern Afghanistan. The attackers opened fire on Malawi Mawin's car soon after she left her home in the eastern Nangarhar province. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but an Islamic State affiliate is headquartered in the area and has claimed most of the recent attacks on civilians in the country. In addition to working as a TV and radio presenter, Mawand was also an activist who advocated for the rights of Afghan women and children. Last month, 2 Afghan journalists were killed in separate bombings in the country. During a press conference in Tehran, the Secretary of Iran's Expediency Discernment Council confirmed that the weapon used to assassinate a top Iranian nuclear scientist belonged to NATO. Mohsen Resai quoted the words of the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of Iran, Mohammad Hossein Bagheri. He also said that during the last few years, various terrorist organizations repeatedly tried to kill scientist Mohsen Fajridazeh, but their efforts had been foiled. The influential Iranian scientist played a leading role in the country's defense industry. He was killed on November 27th in a terrorist attack near Tehran. The investigations to discover the authors of the attack continue, and the results are still pending. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.